All right, welcome everyone. My name is Will Moss, CEO of HBCU Connect. I'm going to be your moderator this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you're from. And in this event, we are actually presenting Intel and some wonderful members of their team that have volunteered their time to share their experiences, to talk about their backgrounds, and why Intel is a great place to work. And specifically, this is part one of a three-part virtual hiring event series and focused on the technology development team organization. So with that out of the way, let me go ahead and get started. So the first thing I like to do is go over the agenda so I can set the expectations for this evening. I'm super excited about what you guys are going to learn this evening, and also the opportunity for careers for those of you that are in attendance. Super excited about it. But let me go over the agenda so that you guys know what we're going to cover this evening or this afternoon. So first of all, I'm going to give a quick welcome on who we are as an organization, HBCU Connect, a little bit about myself, a little bit about our relationship with Intel, some things we've done in the past and what we're looking forward to in the future, and the opportunity, of course, for you all for taking the time out to join us at this event. We're super excited about hosting you. And we thank you for joining us and taking the time out. After that introduction, briefly from myself, I will introduce our keynote speaker, who is Raphael Schweitan, who is also an HBCU graduate. So go Southern. So we'll have a presentation by Raphael as our keynote. He's going to give you an overview of not only Intel and what he does at Intel, but a little bit more about his background as well, and a lot more about the company. So Raphael will be our keynote. Then once the keynote finishes up, I will introduce the panelists who volunteered their time to share their experiences as well and share their insight and to answer your questions. So I'll introduce our three panelists and we'll get into the details of what they do at the company, who they are, and ask a few questions based on their experiences. And then once I've introduced the panelists, we will jump into a panel discussion. We set aside quite a bit of time to, I have some questions that I'm going to ask the panelists on behalf of you all as candidates to help you guys learn more about Intel and learn more about these, gracious people that are sharing their time to share their experiences at Intel. But then we'll also integrate some of your questions in sort of a live Q&A format where you will be able to ask questions live in the chat. I'll take a look at the chat. I'll catch your question and I will shoot it over to the panelists. All right. So make sure if you got some good questions, save them for the live Q&A. But if you got some direct questions for some of our panelists after they introduce themselves, feel free to drop those questions in the chat during the event. All right. So then once we finish up with the panel discussion and a live Q&A, we'll go into some closing remarks from a representative of the company in HR, and she will go over next steps. So if you're really interested in landing an interview and potentially working for Intel, you will know what your marching orders will be. And then we'll close out the event with a few final words from our keynote and then wrap things up. All right, so that's our agenda for the evening. Like I said, super excited that you all have joined us. We've got a great audience. There's like 140 some people on the call. So thank you all for joining us. But let me go into a little bit of background quickly and briefly about myself, HBCU Connect, and our partnership with Intel. So I'm an HBCU graduate. I went to Hampton University, background in computer science, launched HBCU Connect as a passion project. Some savvy recruiters found out that we had this database of HBCU graduates, African-American professionals, anchored on the HBCU community. They reached out to me, when I had a day job, many years ago, and got us to focus on presenting opportunities to the HBCU community through our website. Fast forward to many years later, I have a team of about 17 employees in Columbus, Ohio. And most of you probably know about HBCU Connect already, but those of you where this is your first experience, maybe you heard from one of my team members that have invited you to this event, welcome. We're all about presenting opportunities. And the thing that excites me about these events that we do is people get hired from these events. And that leads into a quick, conversation about what is our history with Intel. This is not our first engagement with Intel. Like I said, this is part one of a three-part series. So there's going to be at least 2 more events with Intel that we will be hosting virtually. But we've been working with Intel now for years, starting out with the relationship with their university relations, where they're invested in trying to connect with HBCU graduates for career opportunities, coming out with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or PhD degree to come work for Intel. That led to a partnership. Let me unmute myself. So that led to a partnership where we did a series of physical events with Intel, and we hosted these events in different parts of the country to help with an initiative to hire over 100 African-American engineers into the company. This was just a couple of years ago, but we hosted events in Texas, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And these were physical events where we would invite out, roughly 100 candidates in that area for the event. They got to learn about Intel, and then they got to sign up for interviews and follow up with Intel, and some of them actually landed job opportunities, which has been, pretty awesome. And that leads us to where we are now. Well, of course, with COVID-19, we're not doing a whole lot of physical events right now, but kudos to Intel because they want to continue to reach out to diverse professionals. And so we partnered to do a series of events virtually to invite you in from all over the country to learn more about Intel and potentially land a career. So the opportunity for you here is real. It's not just an info session. You're going to learn more about the teams represented, the opportunities that are represented, and how you can go about landing an interview and potentially a job. So that's my quick, intro on, what we're doing here, our event, and what's in it for you. So with that, let me introduce our keynote speaker, Rafael Schweten, who's a principal engineer in Intel's Technology and Manufacturing Advanced Design Group and a Southern University graduate. So Rafael, if you're ready. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? You guys hear me? We seem to be having.
Now we can.
Okay, you can.
Yeah, we're good.
Now you can now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to skip this page. This was already on the HBCU webpage. So, some of these foils, by the way, I'm really happy to be here. I'm one of you guys. It seems like a lifetime ago, but it's nice to see, well, not see, but know you guys are out there. Some of these foils I will go quickly over them, okay? And let me know when you cannot hear me because I seem to be. So I go into electrical engineering, from, you can see where everything started from Lagos. I decided to go into electrical engineering very early on, around the age of 5. I was unscrewing an up, and in Nigeria, being a British colony, it's 240 volts. So 240 volts packs a little bit more punch than the 120 volts in the US. So I had a big shock. I was too young. I did not know what it was. I just knew something happened to me. So I went running to my dad. I said, I've been bitten by a snake, because we have a lot of snakes in that neighborhood. So I've been bitten by a snake. So here comes my dad with his stick. Where is the snake? Where is the snake? So I took him to the point where the thing started, and he looked around. He said, "Where's the snake?" I said, "It's somewhere there." So he saw the outlet that I'd taken apart. He said, "Is this the snake?" I said, I was too young to know what I was doing. So
Rafael, I think we are having some issue to hear you. It's kind of choppy.
Yeah, because the sound is really. Let me use the other side and see what happens there. How is this? Is this better?
It seems
Yeah,
like.
yeah, it seems like it. Yep, awesome.
Hold on, just give me a second here.
No problem.
You still cannot hear me?
No, we can hear you. You're good.
What now? No better? Okay, give me a sec. Okay, is this better?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's good. Okay, good. So basically, like I said, I started into electrical engineering. I decided to go into EE when I was very young, even though my dad wanted me to be a doctor. I had electric shock when I was 5 years of age, taking apart an outlet. And, the 240 volts was a bit too much for a 5-year-old kid. So I did not know what it was. I just knew something bad had happened to me. So I ran to my dad and I told him, because we're in a new neighborhood and there were lots of snake there. So all I could tell my dad was, I've been bitten by a snake, and so he knew there were snakes around that area. So hey, he comes with a stick, where's the snake? Where's the snake? And I told him he's around there somewhere. He saw the outlet, I've taken it apart. He said, is this what you were doing before you got bit by the snake? I said, yeah, this is it. So he said, so he gave me a little licking on that, but that was my first experience with electricity. Okay. And then as time went on, I got into, there were TV shows around that time that were talking about computers. Keep in mind, this was the early 80s. So this was very new. So ignorance is bliss, right? So everything I saw on TV about a computer, I actually believed, the computer could talk, the car could talk, all those things. I thought, wow, this is really cool. I have to learn how they do this. So I started to get magazines from England. And back in those days, the first personal PC was the Zilog Z80. And I will read the machine code. And I just, no matter how much I tried, I could not understand that thing. I would spend hours and hours trying to comb through it, and I could not understand that thing. But I knew the excitement was, there's a message here and I'm missing it. So I would buy parts from England, because Nigeria was a British colony. I would buy parts from England, I would buy magazines, and I would put things together. And by the age of 12, I built my first amplifier. But I used cardboard for the circuit board. And I would solder the wires and do things. I used it to impress my friends. They were actually impressed, like, wow, this works, And so anyway, in '83, I left Nigeria and decided to come to the US. So when I arrived in Baton Rouge, the next day, I was at Radio Shack, because now I don't have to do mail order anymore. I could actually go into a building and get what I want. Because I've been trying to decode machine code for so long, as a freshman, I tried to take the microprocessor class, which is a junior level class. They would not let me do it. So as a sophomore, I snuck it. I was able to take microprocessor as a sophomore. By the next semester, I was teaching the class. And people said, wow, you're really, really sharp. I said, up till today, it wasn't about sharpness. It was just about desire. There was something I've been trying to understand for so long, and I could not understand it. Now I'm with people that can teach me. So I just soaked it up. So from my sophomore year to the end of the school to my graduation, I was teaching the microprocessor class, And then my dad, sent me in. The economy in Nigeria went belly, kind of went totally, dead. So I was stuck here for after my second year, there was no more money coming. The gravy train had stopped. And I couldn't really work, because I knew if I work illegally, it's going to affect me in the future, trying to get a green card or anything. So I couldn't work. So the chairman of the department, Dr. Cross, who I still talk to regularly, he's in his 80s now, was paying half of my rent. And because I was teaching for him, I was teaching for him and the dean. And so I decided to see, what will I do myself? So there used to be a program on the floppy disk, Chuck Yeager Flight Simulator. I said, you know what? It was copy protected. I said, maybe I could sell this. It's illegal, but who cared back then? So I spent 2 days and I broke the copy protection on it. Well, this was a case of more technical ability and less common sense. People didn't have computers at all, so nobody bought it. Even though I was proud I broke the copy protection. Then I said, okay, I'll write, then I wrote a program for TI computer. TI was actually into PC back then. It was a really nice game. By the time I finished it, Microsoft was suing TI for copyright infringement. And when they got to court, Microsoft format command was brought up in court. There was a bug, there was a typo in the format application, and TI had the same typo in theirs. So that was the end of the PC for TI. They lost the case. And that was the end of my game. Nobody would buy it. TI was done. So I said, okay, what next can I do? Then I struck gold. I started to write apartment management programs. And I sold it to the guy that was managing my apartment. So between Dr. Cross and the money from the program, I was paying my rent. In hindsight, the guy took advantage of me now. I thought I had a great deal. It was a great deal for him. He had a big complex. So that's how I paid my way through. Dr. Cross paid half my rent the whole time. The school, luckily, and maybe this is only HBCU university, they had something called deferred payment, meaning as long as you have good grade, you can owe us, or you can keep going to class. So I owed the school about 3 years worth of school fees when I graduated. And during the graduation, everybody was celebrating, my frat brothers, everybody was showing a diploma. I knew my diploma was empty. It was just a case. There was nothing in there. So people would say, Ralph, let's see yours. I say, no, because I didn't want people to know I don't really have a diploma. It's just a case, and then I tried to get a job, and this was really the toughest part. Everybody loved my resume. When I interviewed, they all loved me. But it came down to, do you have a green card? No. Do you have residency? No. Sorry, we can't help you. So I went through this, over and over and over again. And then there was a company in Houston, flight simulation company. They work for the government. And they pretty much said that, the guy brought me over. He never checked if I had a green card or not. He just liked me that much. But midway through the interview, one of the guys just asked me, by the way, you do have a green card, right? You're a resident, right? I said, no. I was out of that place in less than a minute. They moved me out of there very fast. And that was a low point in my life, because the sense of rejection, the sense of what is wrong, and for an adult, when I got back outside, they said, keep the car, spend 2 days, and I'm telling you this, that sometimes, things happen to you, but you got to keep going. So I got in the car, I'm in Houston, I don't know anybody. I had tears come down my cheeks, like, wow, what do I do now? All the roads seems to be blocked. So I said, you know what, I'll just go back, I'll do my master's, and I'll teach. So I went back to Southern, and I started to teach, and I was doing my master's. And believe it or not, one day, I don't know if it was the Department of Defense or something, some company came along, and they were deciding between Intel 8080 and Motorola 6800. And I jumped in there, and I just sold Intel like, no. I gave them all the pros and cons, and no. You got to go with Intel. Well, unknown to me, there was a man by the name of Dan Dorrance from Intel. He owned one, back then, Intel had a program called the Graduate Rotation Program. It was created for the creme de la creme recruits. And so Dan I was just watching, I didn't know it was from Intel. And after the speech, everything was over. He was very impressed, like, wow, you saw those guys on Intel. And I was like, okay. He said, I'd like to talk to you. By then I was tired of rejection. I just said, you know what? I don't have a green card. I don't have anything. I don't want to go through this anymore. He said, let me see what I can do. Believe it or not, I got a call on the phone from Intel. They said, we have a summer job for you. It's going to be $45,000 a year. I said, I'll work for free. For many years, they make fun of me because of that statement. I said, I'll work for free. And I meant it. They said, we're in Arizona. Do you mind coming to Arizona? I said, sure, I'll come to Arizona. So after I took the offer, I quickly found the map, said, where the hell is Arizona? And that's how I ended up in Arizona today. you know, and then Gordon Singh, he passed 3 years ago, you know, but through the years, he left Intel about 25 years ago. We stayed together because that was the man that made the change for me. Okay, let's go to the next one. So basically, when things don't go well, just, you know, you have to persevere. You have to persevere. Next page, I'm sorry, okay. So I cannot talk about Intel without talking about the history of Intel, okay? And I'll go through this really quickly. You know, back in 1956, you know, there was a man from Bell Labs called William Shockley. And many of you might not know William Shockley. He was credited with the BJT transistor, you know. But towards his later years, he became a bigot. You know, he wanted to do stuff like Hitler did. He wanted to create a super race. You know, he said very bad things about Black people. You know, he wanted people that couldn't have a certain IQ, you know, to be sterilized so they couldn't reproduce. This was why he was professor at Stanford University. But anyway, he came to Silicon Valley and started the Shockley labs. And for those of you that took electronics, you must remember we did Shockley diodes in school. We learned Shockley diodes, and that was pretty much his creation. But anyway, he started this Shockley labs in Silicon Valley, the first company really in Silicon Valley. And there was another young engineer from Iowa called Robert Noyes. Robert Noyes came to Silicon Valley to join Shockley Labs, along with another engineer called Gordon Moore. Well, they lasted less than a year in the lab, you know, on that job, because they just couldn't reconcile his management style and who he was with what they wanted. So in 56, in 57, eight of them, they call them the treacherous eight, decided to leave the company. So Gordon Moore and Robert Noyes decided to find a new company called Fairchild. And if you ever go to Palo Alto in California, you can find the Fairchild building. Unfortunately, now it's just there. They do nails, makeup, and insurance company. There's a plaque there, you know. But when I go there and I see that, and I see people going back and forth, and I think like, wow, the destiny of mankind changed in this building. This is where the microchip was invented. And right now, nobody cares. It just come and go, you know. But anyway, Noyes went in there and he created the first microchip at Fairchild. The thing to know is this. So that's a great achievement for Noyes, but there is history there that is being forgotten. And, you know, I'll just spend a second to talk about that. The Plano process that Robert Noyes used, was built by a guy called Gene Honey. And Gene himself depended on the work done by another Bell Labs engineer just 2 years before. And that Bell Labs engineer was called Mohammed Atala. He was an Egyptian. So the microchip invented by Noyes actually depended on work done 2-3 years before by a man called Mohammed Atala. Unfortunately, I think Mohammed changed his name to Martin Atala. It got lost in time, you know. But there is that connection. That part of history is not really spoken. But it was actually an Egyptian guy that did that process that Robert Noyes used to create his first microchip. Okay? In 1968, they came to Intel. Noyes and Gordon came to Intel, and they founded Intel, and the company, they were going to call the company Integrated Electronics. And so they decided to just take the first 3 letters of integrated and the first 2 letters of electronics, and that's how the name Intel came to be. The company was going to be called Integrated Electronics. Okay. Noyes, you know, I was lucky to be around Intel when Noyes was alive. He died in 90, unexpectedly. Gordon Moore is still very much alive. He's in Hawaii, you know. Gordon is very soft-spoken. Noyes was a jokester, you know, he played practical jokes all the time. In fact, in high school, he stole the mayor's pig to roast it at his high school luau. He got into lots of trouble with that, but he wasn't easy going compared to Shockley. This man was actually easy to talk to, very easy going, So these are the founders of Intel. These two guys are the founders of Intel. And in 1968, Intel was founded, and the rest is history. The biggest semiconductor company to ever be, Intel. If we go to next one, now we can move. Sorry, I think I lost the picture here. Okay, here we go. So now, Intel started in that previous picture, you saw one building. That was Intel's first building, Santa Clara one. Today, Intel is in all this, just in the US, where, Santa Clara all the way. When I joined Intel in '89, there were 32,000 employees. We're now way over 100,000 employees. And back then, we just focused on making CPUs. And you see, Intel has grown much more than that, and anything you want to do, Intel has it for you. You'll see. Okay, but we're in all these locations now. And with COVID, the location is kind of almost irrelevant now, but let's move on. Let's talk about our people. What's important to us at Intel? We have what is called the Intel culture. Okay, if you look at the top left, we have what is called fearless. When Intel was founded, most of the founding members of Intel, of course, Noyce, PhD, all of those guys were PhD, got in more. But Intel always made point that the title will never be used. Your title will never be used. There was no special parking. There was no special office. Everyone, it was just, everybody had the same thing, homogeneous space for everything. And the whole point of that is that fearless, that, everybody's equal. So today, Intel has this culture that you can challenge anybody. You don't have to be rude. People get that confused. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to yell, or you can challenge anybody. And this is one of the powers people have a power with. The next thing is called inclusion. Intel is very inclusive. We have a very diverse population. And you see how much money Intel is also spending for diversity, because now we know that diversity brings value to the job. We know that now. We did not know that before. Okay. Not everybody, let's not fool ourselves. Not everybody's going to be on board with that. But the majority of the company is on board with that. Okay. At least the management level, Of course, quality. We can't be what we are without quality. Quality is job one. It doesn't matter how nice it is. If it doesn't have quality, it's no good. Okay. Because all you need to do is sell it to the customer once. It fails, you'll never be able to sell it again. Customer obsessed. Intel has a lot of customers, and we have to make customer job one. We have to make sure the customers are satisfied. So we have that. We have something called truth and transparency. And what that is saying is that, it's human nature to want to hide bad news. But we know from experience, it's just a matter of time before that bad news comes to the surface. And the longer you keep it, the worse it's going to be when it happens. So Intel has a policy of truth and transparency. Tell the truth, be transparent. If there's something wrong, at least we can attack it now. We can deal with it now. Because I'll give you a very quick example. We're designing a chip once, me and a good friend of mine then, no longer at Intel, Eric Hoffman. We found a problem. And we said, wow, Eric said, this is really bad. So I said, yeah, what can we do about it? We kind of swept it under the rug. 2 days before that chip was going to tape out, it surfaced again. But now it's worse, because now you're asked, how come you never saw this before? And now it's like, yeah, we did see it before. So why didn't you do something about it? So if there's a problem, you need to nip it in the bud. Just, communicate, confess, and let's get over with it. So we do have that in truth and transparency. And finally, we have something called One Intel. Everything we do is towards a common goal. So, we have a concept called disagree and commit. We don't all have to agree, but let's disagree and commit. This is, I disagree with you, but, I'm going to follow what you're saying. Let's go forward with it. That concept is very, very powerful. So it's based on One Intel. So when we get to this one, I'm just going to show you, cloud. This is what we have. This is what we call our 4 pillars. We have cloud, we have connectivity, We have artificial intelligence. It's everywhere now. And we have intelligent edge. We have these 4 pillars now. Before it was just microprocessor and manufacturing. We have these 4. So let's go on. I told you before, if you want to do something, come to Intel. We have software. We have actual silicon and platforms. We have packaging and process technology. Whatever you want to do, we have it. Okay, that's what this is showing. Now, this shows our portfolio, end-to-end portfolio, what we have. And if you look at this, we go from autonomous vehicles, 5G network, client computing, cloud computing, IoT, edge computing, even AI. So, even when we've had people that come in one job, and over time you reinvent yourself. So Intel, that's one of the great things at Intel. You're not stuck on anything. We have policies where you can actually just switch jobs and go to something else, as long as you're contributing. But from this page, the message on this page is we cover everything. Whatever you want to do, it's there. So going forward to the future, we have to be responsible. We have to look at, revolutionize how technology is used. In the past, technology caused a lot of health problems because we didn't know the impact of it. So we have to be responsible in what we do. And Intel is a very, very responsible company. I will tell you that. Not only is Intel responsible, Intel is very, very ethical company. Okay, and you can take that to the bank. I've been here for a long time, since '89. Okay, inclusive. We're really working on that. We want more people in here. We want technology to be inclusive, sustainable. Our carbon footprint. We need to reduce our carbon footprint. Every company is doing this. It's very important now that we know the emission is causing damage to the environment, and enabling ways to progress through our technology and expertise. So let's go on here. So that's the picture of the future. Now let's talk about strategy, diversity. Intel has been doing diversity for quite a while now, but I've never seen it this big. It's really huge now. And if you look at the first bullet, if you look at the first bullet, we reached full market representation, 2 years early. A lot of money was, when this started, the CEO at that point pushing $300 million to hire diverse candidates. Okay. And we achieved our 2020 goal to spend $1 billion annually with diverse-owned suppliers. Because one thing you'll know in this business is that it's tough to break in when you have people that are already established. So we need someone like Intel to actually go in and say, what, we're going to focus on diverse-owned suppliers to give them a leg up. Because the longer you're down, the tougher it's going to be to play the game at the same level as the other people. And we achieved 100% gender pay equity across the global workforce in 2019. So this is not even just a case of race or wherever. There's a gender inequality. We all know that women get paid less for the same work that men get paid more for. We even see it in the US soccer team, So Intel fixed that problem. We're 100%. So this is the one that makes me want to adopt again. Adopt a child. So we have these benefits, and we offer a total compensation package that is made up of pay, stock, and bonuses, and it's very competitive. Okay. The new one we have now, we have new parent benefits. That's not only for mom, it's also for dad. So let's say there's a new child or a new adoption. There's what is called a bonding leave. It's 12 weeks of paid time off that is given to the mom and is given to the dad. So you can take 12 weeks of work and go and bond with your new child. And there's bereavement also, 10 weeks of bereavement for family or extended family. And it's all paid for. Of course, we have vacation time, we have holidays, and you have flexible time off. If you're not hourly, it's very flexible. Just get your work done. Okay, and curiosity drives us to change. We provide employees. We send people to school to get an MBA. We send people to school to get a master's degree. We send people to continue their education. Or even when you're on the job, you want to learn something else, we can let you go work on that new job. See how you like it, and you can switch. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go. Can you go to the next one? Okay. I work in a technology department, TMG, Technology and Manufacturing Department. Under that, we have a group called, I'm sorry, can you go back to the previous one? I want to skip this one. Can you go to the previous one? Under this, under design, under TMG, which was the first group I entered when I came to Intel, there's a group called Design Enablement, which is where I am. The function of design, can we go to the next one now? The function of design enablement is to enable Intel, the chip design, things we do, manufacturing, and that includes, you basically have to go through everything a product will go through. We do the analog design, the design rules, the processing, test chips, yield structures, it's all there. This is like a microcosm of Intel. That's the group I'm in. It's called, I'm in the left one called Advanced Design. So we have memory, analog, and things over there. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Raphael. So one question I like to ask our panelists that are HBCU grads, what is your perspective? Because we got a lot of not only HBCU grads that are with us as candidates right now, but we also have a lot of folks that have diverse backgrounds in the Latinx and African-American community with us as well. But my question for you is, do you feel that your experience having attended an HBCU prepared you well for what you do now at Intel?
Yes, let me answer that. Yes, it does. But what we have to look out for is this. When you come from an HBCU university, you're competing with people from Stanford and MIT. You naturally have a tendency to feel your education is inferior. Okay. When I joined Intel, I was actually teaching microprocessor architecture, and I realized in that class how I graduates from Stanford, MIT, and those places, and I was astonished to see like they're no different. They are no different, and that was the eureka moment. That it's really up to you. It's really up to you. The learning never stops. But what you learn in HBCU, it's up to you. Did you go there? Did you learn? Did you do your work? If you did, then you're fine.
Excellent. So Raphael, let me thank you for being our keynote, and I'll ask you to hang on for our panel discussion. And for our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Raphael and his background and what he does, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And then Raphael, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any questions that may come through that you can answer.
Okay.
Okay, with that, let me go ahead and introduce our panelists that will also be joining us during our panel discussion. And our first panelist is Ramon Avila, Senior Principal Engineer, Technology Development and Design Enablement. So Ramon, if you're ready.
Thanks, Will. Thanks. Actually, Raphael, great keynote. I've known Raphael for, wow, a long time, more than 10 years, maybe 15,
no,
close to 20 years, 20 years. I didn't know everything that Raphael just mentioned. So thanks, Raphael. I learn something new every day. And actually that's true of not only our fellow employees, but that's one of the things I like about Intel. I'll touch on in a second, but a little bit about my background. I was actually born in Mexico. I came to my family came to the US when I was 6 months old. I basically, grew up in the US. My two brothers were born in the US. We all went to school in Southern California. I went to a junior high, not really knowing what career path I wanted. That's where I was introduced into programming. Basically, my junior high was one of the few ones in Southern California that had computer science programming. So we actually had computers. I mean, they were very old Radio Shack TRS-80s. I don't know if your old guys may remember that, but that's a computer we had, and the language we used was BASIC. It was called BASIC. I learned it, picked it up. I was very, I mean, it surprised me. I was very good at it. And from then on, I knew this technical path was the one for me. I in high school, I continued taking computer science classes and, double E, obviously, all those kinds of things. I went to UCLA. I graduated from the School of Engineering there. I was actually computer science and engineering major. It's kind of a dual path, which is one of the things I really like to work on. I love the software side of the world, but I also love the hardware side of the world. And my favorite kind of project to work on is one where you kind of merge the two together somehow. And that is very prevalent across Intel. And what I was going to say earlier is that, at Intel, even though your degree or your background may help you get you in the door, once you're in, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you build upon what your achievements are within Intel. And that's true for all the Intel folks that are here, Raphael and Jack and Carrie. After college, I went to work at Xerox for a few years. I was a software developer there. Then I met my future wife, and we decided to move to Arizona. So coincidentally, Raphael, myself, and Jack are all in Arizona. And Carrie, I don't remember if what location you're in, but it's coincidental that we're all in Arizona, even though Intel has many sites, as you saw in Raphael's presentation. Once you're in Intel, there's many opportunities. It's a huge world, lots of different teams, as Raphael showed. I have moved around in some of those teams. My initial job was really a pure software development, type of job. Over time, I've moved into more double E sort of thing. And today, I'm a senior principal engineer in the group doing technology development. I'm very deep into understanding the process technology, which is something in college, I took a class where I had to do spice analysis. I hated it. I still maybe don't like it that much, but I understand it. And, I know it's a tool that we have to use. So, it's interesting, the things you learn in college, you may think you're never going to use. The simplest ones are the ones you use most, actually. That's my experience and my my advice to you, to the students here. You'll look back on your career and see that kind of thing. Anyways, yep. So we're all on the same team. We're very excited. We're inventing new things every day. Every day there's a new challenge. We have to keep going and move the technology forward. As you might know, Moore's law is really a fundamental to our rate of progress at Intel, and we feel compelled to invent whatever's needed to keep that trend going, and that's what we're working on every day. So anyways, that's a little bit of background on myself. Happy to be here and happy to take questions.
So if I could follow up with a couple of questions just to dig a little bit deeper into your path. So how did you actually get your foot in the door at Intel? So if you can kind of, were you recruited out of college, or how exactly did you get into the company? And then what are some of the different roles that you've had at the company that led up to your current role?
Yeah. So I just sent my resume. I mean, back then it was a paper resume. You actually, submitted it in a career fair or you mailed it. Okay. I mailed my resume. Actually, I was in Southern California, and we decided to get married. My wife was Northern California. She didn't want to move to the South. I was from Southern California. I didn't want to move to the Northern California, kind of a weird thing in our family. So we said, let's go to Phoenix. It looks pretty new. So I applied at a few places. I got a job interview at Intel. My background fit into the group that interviewed me. My first manager is actually still in my group. We still work together. So we were kind of a family that's been together for 25 years or so here at Intel. So yeah, and it's funny, the job roles I've had, you know, you can steer your career path within Intel. There's so many different kinds of job roles, opportunities. There's the pure software, which I started in. There's really hardcore silicon design work. You can go into analog route, you can go the digital route. I happen to go a little more on the digital side. So I had some jobs where I designed early cell phone chips. Actually, Rafael and I worked on one of the very early phone chips that Intel attempted to get into. So that was one of our common projects way back when. I also develop and architect methodologies. That's basically the techniques that our designers will use and the types of design tools that our designers will use. So I'm more on that side of the design enablement group. So I've moved around a little bit, getting deeper into the technology, expanding the scope, architecting more, directing larger teams effectively. And that's kind of how my career path, has led me to where I am today.
In your role currently, do you participate in the interviewing of new candidates? And if so, what kind of hints or tips would you give candidates? And these are mostly experienced candidates that we actually have on our call today. But do you participate in any interviews for your team? And then what is that like to go through the interview?
Well, at Intel, obviously we want to understand your technical background. So a hint, here's a hint. Always, tune your resume to the job you're applying towards. That's one of my hints I try to tell everybody. Yeah. Read the requisition. Look at all the keywords or buzzwords that they're using in there. And if your background matches, great, but you can always enhance your resume, really beef it up. Because nowadays our system, does a scanning, and there's actually some AI system that rates the applicability. So whatever you can do to really focus your resume to the job rec, that'll only help. So that's the first one. Number two is really make sure you understand the technical background, because you'll get very deep questions in those areas. So we'll know if you really don't know what you're talking about. So beyond, if you actually don't know something, it's okay to say it. Maybe there's a different application or a different skill set that might be useful. But yeah, the technical aspect is very important. Communication is very important. Conveying your thought process is very important. We ask some what's known as behavioral questions, which is really trying to understand how you approach problems and how you tackle those problems, including when you were successful and actually when you were not successful. So good examples like that are very useful to understand the thought process. So those kinds of techniques are the ones that I would recommend. And
then a more technical question. Let's say I have a software engineering background, maybe a little bit of double E academically, but maybe you've been out in the workforce as a software engineer. For your particular team, what types of skills or technologies do you like to see for software engineers?
Lots of languages. We tend to use. I mean, we still write programs in C. The bigger programs are still very C. We develop in the Unix or Linux environment. Sure. Everything is pretty hardcore there. If you know Python, that's one of the new languages that some of our we use in some of our development. Any kind of AI aspect or machine learning aspect is a new thing that we're trying to apply in different places. So we actually use machine learning in various aspects of our development. Any kind of automation scripting in the Linux environment is useful for our particular group. So any ones of those, structure. Obviously, we need structured programming. We need all this software development essentials. Sure. So that's kind of a baseline. But above that, it's the languages, the Python, the machine learning type of languages or constructs. Those kinds of things would be very useful in our group.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you my favorite question, and I'll probably ask everyone before the end of the event. And that is, what is it that you like most about working at Intel for you personally?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I mean, literally, we invent new things every day. We have to figure out how to do something. It may sound, a little odd, but we have to invent new things, and that's actually quite satisfying. We may learn a different technique or invent a different technique, or adapt a few ideas together and put them together, and that may, instead of moving forward, maybe you make a left-hand turn and try something else adjacent, and then maybe that's the path to move forward. But we're always looking at how to advance our technology, and it really, I mean, really, it's inventing new things. Maybe not every day, but we invent new things. We have to keep going and pushing our technology forward. So that's my favorite thing.
Excellent. So Ramon, thank you for being one of our panelists. I'll ask you to hang on for our panel discussion. And to our candidates, if you have questions for Ramon specifically, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And Ramon, I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat just in case there's some questions you can answer. All right, so with that, let me go ahead and introduce our next panelist, and I'll remove the spotlight from Ramon. All right, our next panelist is Jack DeRose, and Jack is a process design kit program manager. So I know we have lots of folks that have a program management background. So definitely listen up, because we've got a couple of program management professionals from Intel that have joined us. So Jack, if you're ready.
Yes, ready. Hi, everyone. As Will was saying, my name is Jacques Desroses. I was born in a little island in the Caribbean, Martinique, which is a French island. When I was 17, actually, when I was 17, when did I know I wanted to be in electronics? I think it started when I was a youngster, around 10, 12. I was playing with my dad, and he used to give me, those radio were not working, and he's like, Jack, let's see, let's open it. I don't think I ever repaired one, but I had a lot of fun doing it. So that's what drove me to go into electronics. And in Martinique, we do not have so much university, so I had to move to the mainland in France to for college, focusing, as I was mentioning, on electronics. Fast forward, when you are in semiconductor and you have your diploma, you always want to look at the number one, which is Intel. So here I am, 2006, and I'm like, okay, I wanna apply to Intel. That was my first company I applied to, and I had a similar experience that Raphael was saying, is not having the green card and not having the paperwork to work in the US was really something that slowed me down at the time. But the thing is, I was working for when I was doing my last training period, I was working for a company that was called ST Microelectronics. And at the time, I was not really excited to go to the US. I was not looking forward to that. I started working for this company, and the first proposal they gave me was to move to the US. I had to go against my first no, and went to the US, work for this company. Ended up loving it, just really loving it. I landed in Oregon. For a guy like me, like from a Caribbean island, I love the beach, I love the sun. Landing in Oregon, I swear, was a change, but I loved it. Again, things that I thought I wouldn't like, I ended up loving. Fast forward, met my wife in Oregon. My training period ended. Went back to Grenoble, worked there for a while, made my wife come with me and live with me, and that's when I finally got the green card, and I had an opportunity to move with this company. Worked there for a good 10 years in California. Had an opportunity to move to a new company, Global Foundry. I landed the job in 2013. No, actually, no, 2015. And I told to my wife, because we wanted to go back to Oregon, that's it. I just got that new job. I'm not moving anywhere this is the company. 8 months into the job, a friend of mine that I'm working with right now told me, we have a job in Intel in Oregon. And at that point, I'm like, Intel though, all right? My first dream, coming back there, going back to Oregon. I was really scared to even tell my wife because I knew this minute she hear Oregon, we would be there packing and stuff. But I said, okay, let's see, and that's actually where I met Ramon for my interview. Ramon, I don't know if you remember that, but you were one of the first view I had to Intel, and I gotta say from the start, really from the start, the interview, Intel moved me to. Not move me, but they made me fly to meet everyone in where was that? Not in Austin. Ramon, where are you based again? Sorry, I'm losing my
Arizona. Chandler.
Arizona.
Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler. My bad. So really, the minute I had this, this temporary badge, I really didn't want to give it up. And that's one of the message I passed to my future manager was I really want this job and I really want to make things move. And now I would say the rest is history. I gotta say, I really wanted to go to Intel, and I didn't know how much I really wanted to go to Intel. And arriving there, starting working, I think the first thing that impressed and made an impression on me is really the people, because you're working with those Raphael, those it's amazing. It's amazing the team that we have, the way things works. It's and going back to what Ramon was saying, it's every day is different. Every day you wake up, you're not always solving it every day, but every day you are faced with a new way how to approach and how to resolve some new issues that come your way. So really, day to day, my favorite thing, will to answer ahead of time, is really the interaction with the people, learning every day a new way, finding solution for very complex issue. It's fulfilling. I think that's the word that I'm looking for. It's really fulfilling every day to realize that, I'm talking on a HP computer and I see Intel Core i7 on it. It's that feeling of pride. And also for the story is when I used to work for those other company, everybody asks me, who you working for, and you get that look. Oh, okay. When you say you work for Intel, that's it. You don't have to go further. And it's in the inside, it's also a great company to work. As I was saying, there are some issues to solve, but we work on them, I would say, as a team, almost as a family. So it's great. And for my personal story, on top of it, I really get this chance with Intel to be enrolled to really some key training. When you arrive, there is a training, and also being a minority, there is an additional focus that is made to give you some additional training. For example, recently I participated in a leadership training, and I never was offered those kind of opportunity. So I think that an additional good thing about Intel is they're looking out for their people, and they are really looking out to. It's not a job. It's a career. So a big thanks to Intel, and also this event is also one of my way to give back all I was given, and I'm keep being given at Intel.
Excellent.
I think that's about it. Any question?
Yeah, I would love to follow up with the question. So how long have you been with the company again? And then
It's been
what roles have you had?
So it's been 5 years. So I've been at Intel 5 years. So I have always had this role of program manager, PDK program manager. In those 5 years, the change for me, because usually every 2 years in my career, either I wanted it or not, I had a change in terms of more responsibility, different direction. And in those 5 years, that has been also the case, because I will not steal the thunder of Kerry, that is working with me as well. But I started as a PDK manager. Then you get more technology to support, and I got I was about to say I got lucky, but my manager came and offered me a position on top of my program management, to work with EDA vendor. So it's great, because it's open back your view to the outside world, because Intel is a big company. There is a lot, as everyone is saying, anything you want to do, you can do it at Intel, pretty much. So it's also it's having this EDA view and being able to work with the outside industry also give you some input that then help bring Intel forward. So that was and still is a great opportunity, and I feel like I can help the PDK development. I can help the team move forward. So that's also one key thing. And more recently, as of 2 or 3 weeks, I was given yet another job, because we are doing program management, but there are in the PDK there are two types of program manager, and now I'm having 3 hats. So 2 program manager for PDK hat and an EDA hat. So it's not changing, it's mainly accumulating the responsibility. And again, one thing that I want to note is, even if there is an accumulation of responsibility, it's always being discussed with your manager to understand if you can do it, if you have the time. And for example, in the most recent and even the previous one, it's also mean shifting some responsibility to other members. So it's really a way to evolve, but still having the work-life balance.
Excellent. So Jack, if I want to thank you for being one of our panelists as well. So
thank you for having me.
please definitely hang on for our panel discussion. But with that, let me go ahead and introduce our next panelist, who is Kerry Nemec. So Kerry, if you're ready, let me go ahead and control the focus 1 second. Let's see, the spotlight.
Hi, Kerry. Good seeing you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, Kerry. So Kerry is a technical program manager at Intel, and I know we've got lots of program managers interested in the opportunities at Intel that are on the call with us. So definitely, guys, stay tuned and listen up to Kerry. But if you have questions for Jack, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. But with that, Kerry, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kerry Nemec. I was born in New York. As a child, we moved around a lot, so I don't necessarily call any particular state home. I currently live in Oregon, and I've been in Oregon. I actually have come back to Oregon after living in Massachusetts with Intel for a while. My journey, I was one of those kids that was good at math and science, so I wasn't necessarily taking things apart, but engineering sounded interesting, so I said, okay, I'll apply to engineering programs, and I ended up getting my undergraduate degree. I was a double major. I did electrical engineering and biomedical. There was some small thought that I would go to vet school in the back of my head, and I realized I didn't really want to take organic chemistry, so that went by the wayside. So after my undergrad, I actually applied to various companies. I applied to Intel. I didn't get a job offer at Intel, but I actually ended up going to IBM. And I was at IBM for 5 years. And I did support. I was third line support for their servers. And after 5 years, I went back to get my master's degree in electrical engineering at Purdue, and I did a solid state emphasis. So when I went back to IBM, I had a couple of job offers in Burlington, and I had applied back to Intel, and I decided to go to Intel in Oregon. In Oregon, up until the last year, I'd always been on the design side. So like I've done SRAM cell design, I've done SRAM designs, I've done registry file designs, I've done data path, I've been part of a standard cell library team, and done library cell design. I've done some full chip integration. I've done mock tape-ins, a little bit of everything. During my the last development job I had was with the standard cell library team. And in that team, they needed somebody to program manage the releases. So I took over that job, and I realized I really like being a program manager. It leveraged my technical skills along with my innate need for organization and my OCD-ness. So I decided that I was gonna follow that path. And about a year ago, I decided I wanted to change from my prior job, and I applied to design enablement, and I got a job in the PDK program manager group with Jack. And I moved over to the technology side for the first time in my career. So I am actually, Jack and I share the EDA vendor program management position. So my primary responsibility is I work with EDA vendors to make sure that their tools are working with our process design kit, and basically work with schedules, making sure the tools come in time, and just anything that you do for program management. And it's the first time I've done an external facing job, and I love it. It's very interesting, and I learn a lot every day. The other thing that I'd like to mention at Intel, the other thing I do, which it's an amazing opportunity at Intel, is I volunteer. Intel provides quite a few opportunities to volunteer. And my two volunteer activities right now is I am a operations manager for the Intel Black Leadership Council. And I also am part of the community outreach team for the network of Intel employees of African ancestry in Oregon. And so Intel encourages you to volunteer and give your time for the betterment of the world, which I think is an amazing thing for a company to do.
Excellent, excellent. So what is a day in the life like for you as a program manager? And before you answer that, I want to ask the rest of our panelists. You guys can get ready. I'm going to have you guys turn your video on as Carrie finishes up the answer to this question, and then we'll jump into our panel discussion and live Q&A, because we've got about 20 minutes left. So Carrie, if you want to talk a little bit about a day in the life as a technical program manager, I think that would be good.
Yeah, the first thing I do when I walk in the morning into my office at my house right now, I look at my email to see if anybody has sent me any issues they need me to talk with the vendors right away. So I scan through my email, make sure there's nothing important that I have to deal with right away that came up overnight, because we do have folks in India that we work with, so that are part of our team. So things will show up in the morning, and anything that I have to take care of, I start that process first thing. Then basically I start going through any tickets and enhancements or issues that we found on vendor tools, and start trying to triaging those and figuring out what to do with those and discussing with the folks. I attend a lot of meetings, mostly informational for me to listen and to make sure I can stay abreast of what's going on. And then usually every day I have at least one meeting with one of the vendors to discuss any concerns, tickets, any tool drops that are coming. And that's really about it. So it's rinse and repeat.
Excellent. I think that's something that a lot of the program managers will relate to that are on the call. So thank you, Carrie, for introducing yourself and a little bit about what you do at Intel. So with the rest of our time that we have left, I'd like to ask all of our Intel folks to turn on their video, at least all of our panelists. So let me spotlight everyone. So I've got Jack, Raphael, if you're ready as well. I'll add you to the spotlight, and then we'll run through a few of our Q&A. All right, so let's see, add to the spotlight. Okay, so I want to circle back. I want to get at least one question into each one of our panelists. Then I'll start to look for some questions from our live Q&A. So to our candidates, if you've got questions that you'd like for me to ask to our panelists, get ready to drop those in the chat. But first, let me go ahead and round robin for some quick Q&A with our panelists. So this first one is for Raphael. Raphael, if you, for a candidate that's wondering if they can be successful at Intel, what skills do you think a candidate needs to have or a person needs to have to be successful at Intel, whether they're soft skills or even technical skills?
Well, it definitely depends on the job. You need to have skills in the job you're applying to. And then you need to have perseverance, because the reality is when you get on the job, nothing is given to you. Everything is, you gotta stand your ground, and everything you do is going to be challenged. And sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. You got to have a tough skin, and you really have to have a tough skin, and to do that. But stuff like technical skills, all those things we assume you already have.
And to any of our panelists, if anyone wants to add to a question, feel free to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, we're almost pure engineers in the sense that we're problem solvers, right? Everything is we look at it as a problem that has multiple solutions. We need to find those solutions, rank those solutions, weigh them, and determine which is the best one to proceed with. So that's kind of what we do every day, and learning new things, and developing new things, inventing new things. So I think that's a key skill. If you're able to do that, and if you're good at it, I think Intel could be a great place for you.
Excellent, excellent. So my next question, I'll default to Jack, but for our panelists, I love the diversity of our panel. So if anyone wants to add their perspective on this question, please feel free to do so. But the question is, do you feel that you can be yourself culturally speaking and bring who you are to work? So like I said, I'll default that question to Jack, and then if anyone else wants to chime in.
Yeah, it's funny because for Intel really do some survey too, and that is really one of the questions that was asked in the latest survey. In my case, I can say fully hearted yes. I'm the French guy in the team. to be honest, I don't think there is, I don't face any occasion where I felt like, I had to hide myself or be different. It's really, focus on the issue. It's really also one thing that I appreciate is that sometimes you are in meeting, you're discussing like an issue that is, I come into the meeting, I'm like, it's the end of the world, and everybody's gonna be like, okay, what is the issue? Are we gonna solve it? What can we do? So it's, to me, in terms of inclusion, in terms of being yourself, it's great. Again, maybe that's my experience, and I can ask the other panelists, but yeah, I feel like my identity is recognized, respected, and I don't feel like there is, oh, you from there or whatever. So yeah, that's.
So let me add to that real quick. So when I joined Intel in '89, there were like about 5 of us. Okay, but the way to look at this problem is very simple. Intel has a meritocracy system. You get paid based on the job, based on how well you do the job. And it applies to you, it applies to your manager, it applies to your manager's manager. At the end of the day, if you're doing a good job that makes the organization look good, there's no manager in the world that doesn't want to work with you, because at the end of the day, what you do reflects on your manager. And I'm telling you, you see, people don't really care about those things. And I'll give you one quick example. I saw a brother once in the hallway, and he's going around with headphones, and he's doing this. I was like, dude, that's too much. But nobody bothered him. I just felt like, tone it down. So yeah, Jack is correct. Nobody, if you contribute, that's what matters.
Anyone else want to add to that one? If not, let's go to next question. So what I want to do now is I want to start to integrate some good questions that I'm seeing coming in to the chat. And so I see a question from Nicole to the panel. So anyone that might want to volunteer to answer this one, and that is, what is different about the culture at Intel as compared to the FANG companies? So that's like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, right? So what's different about Intel based on your experience?
So let me put it this way. Before Facebook, before Netflix, before any of these companies, they all copied Intel's culture. Okay, it was Microsoft, Oracle, Intel. They had this culture of everyone is the same. Okay, you saw Steve Jobs in his t-shirt. Now you see Zuckerman in his t-shirt. It's all from Intel. It's all Intel's culture. So what is different? I can't really tell you specifically what is different. I don't work for Facebook, but when I look at them from the outside, it's all these companies are based on Intel culture when Intel started.
Yeah. I mean, what Raphael mentioned earlier is I forgot about it, but it's so normal to me now. But when I joined Intel, my manager had a cube. Everyone has a cubicle. My manager had a cube. His manager, her manager had a cube. Everyone has a regular cube office. There's no, there's no fancy corner office. It doesn't exist. Maybe some managers hang out in a conference room all day long to do their calls, but everyone has a cube. There's no doors. I mean, the door is the entryway to your cube, and you can peek over the wall and kind of, hey, can I have a chat? Obviously, we've been dealing with that a little bit differently over the past year, but it kind of lends itself to really equality in some ways, right? Everyone's the same. Everyone has the same thing.
We had a situation when Andy Grove, the legendary Andy Grove, was told he was running late in the conference room, and a regular employee told him like time, and he had to get up and leave. That was the legendary Intel CEO Andy Grove. He had to leave.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's good insight. So let me pull another question from our candidates. This one's from Gabrielle, and I'll default this one to Carrie if you want to touch on this one. But the question is, what has been Intel's policy as far as handling the coronavirus? Has there been any remote work policy implemented, and has the pandemic affected Intel's business in any way? So I'll default that one to Carrie, but if anyone else.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, unless you're in a lab or in the fab and have to be on site, everybody else is virtual in some manner. So I work from my craft room at home because my husband actually also is working at home in the upstairs office. And we were going to start doing, and it got pushed back, especially in Oregon because of the Delta variant. We had actually started signing up of whether we wanted to do hybrid or come back full time. And they're allowing a remote option for a small percentage of the population that that are approved at different levels. So everybody's group is slightly different on that. But I miss going to work. I signed up for going back on site all the time, and I cried a little. I cried a little when they pushed it back. Yep. So I don't think, I don't know. I don't know when we'll go back. But
I think that's interesting. So what is it about the work environment that made you want to go back to work on site?
Yeah, so as somebody mentioned, we're in cubes, right? So if you have a question for somebody and they're in your area, like if Jack was sitting next to me, I could pop over my cube and ask him a question. I don't have to IM him. I check if he's on his thing, and if he's not, say, do you have a minute? And he'll answer it. I miss that. I miss going to the cafeteria and eating lunch with people and talking. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
I was saying all those breaks that we take, it's at the end of the day, you work with people, and that's how you build not trust, not confidence, but that's how you build a team. You go, you talk about an issue over coffee. We are a lot of coffee drinker around in my area. So it's really, I mean, going back is kind of exciting to see the face, because as I was saying before, it's like a family to some extent. You know, even some people that you don't see anymore, you miss them, physically miss them. I'm there at that point. It's been a year and a half, so.
Yeah, and I think I'm a little unique in this group because I actually changed jobs and went to a different group year ago, actually this month.
Yep.
So I've not actually met any of my new team members in person.
Yeah.
So all the Oregon folks that are in Oregon that would go back, you know, I would have moved my cube and I would have met them all. It's all been through virtual. So
yep.
It's interesting. Like I said, I can't wait to go back.
Nice. So let me default this next question to Ramon, and that is, how easy or difficult is it to move around within the company from one organization to another once you're on board as an employee at Intel?
It's actually pretty easy. I mean, you've probably heard a few of us talk about their career path. You know, you'll network once you're in the company. You'll get a chance to network, work with other different teams in whether it's in design or in the R&D, kind of where we are. So once you meet people, you see what they're doing, or maybe you have some background or skill that you're developing. Like let's say I really now liked artificial intelligence or machine learning. I could find internal job postings in those areas, and it's very easy to apply to a job in a different area as long as you have the background and as long as you have the skill set. Once you're in, it's pretty open. I mean, you're free to move around. You know, basically to make an adjacent career move or move from a technical role to a non-technical role. I know many people that have done that sort of career move. So it's pretty open. I mean, it's a pretty open, all kinds of opportunities, and it's all available to anybody.
And on top of that, there is also some programs. There are also some programs that are designed. Let's say you work in a team, you can do an assignment in another team. Yeah. So there is, even on top of networking, meeting people, there are some programs that are set up specifically, you know, to give you a taste of something else if you are considering the move. So I think, as we were mentioning, you can do anything at Intel. So that's also one of the company. You can change career without changing company.
Yeah, I think I was the one. I think I'm probably the most recent person who moved jobs. And similar to the external site for job offerings, we have an internal one, and there's quite a bit more there because there are some stuff that's internal only. So you go on and you apply. Similarly, you have your resume, you apply, you get if somebody's interested, you get a phone interview. If that goes well, then you go on to the next step. You still go through the interview process as a general statement. We also have something that they're called gigs now. And basically you can go on there. If you like your current job, but you want to try something a little bit different, you can go find a gig once you talk to your manager for like 10% of your time, and you can go work on something for a short period of time. And they're very compartmentalized gigs and very specific requirements and outcomes they're expecting. And so that's something we have also.
Nice.
So you don't have to move either. You can always contribute if you're passionate about what someone else is doing. I've worked with people that actually became experts in fields when they have no degree.
Excellent. Looks like there's a lot of opportunity for growth, at Intel. Let me pull another question from one of our candidates, and this one's from Dennis O. And the question is about work-life balance. So I'll default this one to Raphael. So the question is, how is the current culture in terms of work-life balance at Intel?
Intel will take as much as you give. It's just that simple. So my manager told me a long time ago, you are responsible for managing your time. And the biggest problem people have is that they are afraid to say no. And so, if you don't say no, you keep piling on. And many times, all you have to do is say, you know what, I cannot do this, I cannot. And people, you just find out like, okay, that's okay. When can you do it? Well, that pushback people cannot do makes things worse. But yeah, you're responsible for your own time. They will pile on as much as you allow.
Agreed. I was saying when I was accumulating the hat, my first time I made that mistake, I said yes without even thinking about it. And since then, my manager has always told me, think about it a little bit. And even the last move where I had to transfer some responsibility to Kerry, that was pushed by the manager saying he cannot do all of that. We have to balance the stuff. So again, be careful because Intel will take as much as you give, but it's also reasonable if you, as Raphael was saying, if you make it clear that it's not happening. I mean, it's also in the interest of Intel to have some employees that last longer. So yes, have that in mind.
Yeah, and the one thing I've learned too is always, if you need help, ask for help. As engineers, we tend to want to solve the problem ourselves. And Intel is a very large company. And in most cases, not all, but the problem you're trying to solve is probably somebody either is already working on it or has a solution that may be useful to you. So if you go out to your network and ask for help on something that you can't get past, people are very willing to help you, and you'll get probably a lot more information than you ever wanted to know. But that's the one thing that I learned is just ask for help when you need it. Don't sit in your cube and get stuck and just keep working on it by yourself, because there's a lot of smart people at Intel, and we can rely on each other for that.
Excellent. So let me ask one more question from our candidates, and this one's from Felicia, and it's with respect to roles. So as someone who didn't begin in tech, I've learned that roles emerge and adjust by name as often as technology does. This can make navigating the job market a bit difficult without having the latest vocabulary to match skills to the role. How has your role evolved by name over time, and what are some examples of emerging titles and skill sets that folks need there at Intel that you've seen? So if anyone might want to touch on that from a high level, I know Ramon spoke to this a little bit in his introduction, but if anyone would like to tackle this one.
Ramon, you want to take it or?
No, I can follow on with somebody else.
I mean, so if they're asking, how does title change, how does roles change, when Intel started, there were two pillars for Intel. There was the manufacturing and there was the microprocessor. They were very distinct. If you look today in between those two activities today, I showed you that page, with everything, now software is tough to, in some cases it's tough to separate software from hardware. They've kind of tied together, so it's a tough question to answer, but I can tell you when I started, things were much cleaner. The boundaries were well defined, and it's no longer the case. You're moving all over the place. You're talking to different people now. It's so much more complicated.
Yeah, the one example I'll give, I see the question Felicia is asking about UX, UI, user experience. We actually have a senior fellow whose background is in anthropology. Her expertise is ethnology, which is the study of culture and how people do things. That's something we absolutely need to understand how our products will be used in developing new market areas. So we have whole branches of people that are in that space, and we think it's so important we have a senior fellow that actually is responsible for that at Intel.
Excellent.
Like I mentioned before, I've worked with people that are working on jobs that didn't have a background. They just had a passion for it. They went to start to learn it, and they moved into it.
Excellent. So we're just about out of time, but what I want to do before we adjourn is I want to give a couple of minutes to Josetta Morales, who represents HR at Intel, to talk about next steps. So Josetta, if you are ready.
I'm ready. Thank you. Hi, everyone. As Will said, my name is Josetta Morales. I'm an HR business partner in the technology group, and it's nice to be here with all of you today. Okay, so for next steps, first off, thank you to all of you who have already submitted your resumes. We will be getting those in front of our TD hiring managers, and we will be moving quickly. So if selected to move forward in the hiring process, we will be contacting you soon. And if you haven't already done so, we encourage you to fill out the talent form. So to access the talent form, you can use your phone to scan the QR code that's on the screen now. And I believe we've already dropped the link in the chat, but it will also be sent to you via email following this event. So within the talent form, you can upload your resume and create a profile, which puts your information in Intel's database. And so what that does is it makes your information visible to our recruiting teams across Intel. And you can also visit jobs.intel.com, where you can do a keyword search to find open roles that you're interested in. And we're hiring at all levels. So from internships, entry-level college grads, all the way through to experienced hires. And then I encourage you to stay connected with us. And that can be through events like this in the future, or social media such as LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, to stay up to date with all of the exciting things that are happening at Intel. And then lastly, thank you so much to today's speakers and panelists, and to HBCU Connect for supporting this event, and to all of the participants for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed this presentation and took away something new that they learned about Intel. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Josetta. So excellent. So what I typically like to do at our events is give the last word to our keynote speaker. So our keynote speaker is Raphael. So Raphael, let me hand it over to you to take us or close us out.
Okay, so I've just got some examples from the giants of the industry, just to give some advice. The first one, of course, is Steve Jobs. And it's talking about time. You are not going to be able to do everything, and you need to manage your time properly. And that is one thing you cannot buy. You cannot do anything about it. And most importantly, don't even let other people waste your time. Okay, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you're always doing something. It means, even if you daydream, it's necessary for the creative process. But make sure what you're doing is towards a purpose. So for example, you spend 90 minutes here. You better make sure you get something out of these 90 minutes, because you can't get it back. So spend your time wisely. And this is from Bill Gates, of course. I mentor a bunch of high school kids, and they're always very happy to tell me about their grades, fantastic grades, how well they're doing and everything. And I always ask them one question that always stuns them. And the question is, how do you handle failure? And many of them, they've not dealt with failure. And I'm saying, when you go to school, when you go to the Ivy League university, they're all good, just like you. It's going to be a struggle. When you're successful, in life, in many, because there's an element of luck in success, whether you like it or not. After you're hardworking, you've done everything you're supposed to do, there is an element of luck, And so when you're successful, you're never sure whether you were just lucky or not. But when you fail, you did something wrong, and you better learn from it. And of course, from Bob Noyce, everything I've told you today is based on what we know today and what we knew in the past. It doesn't mean it's going to be the way it goes forward. And Bob, being the genius he was, he clearly say, don't be encumbered by history, just go out and do something wonderful. In the turn of the century, they say man cannot travel faster than 30 miles an hour because the air pressure will bust his lungs. Well, Ford never went to university. That might have kept him back from inventing the car. So do not be encumbered by history. Just take everything with a grain of salt. Everything I've told you, take with a grain of salt. Question everything, and you find out 90% of what you think you don't really know. You just choose to believe it. And there's going to be times when your best is not good enough. You can't escape it. There's a poem by President Theodore Roosevelt that he gave a speech, The Citizenship of the Republic in France at the turn of the century. And he talked about the man in the arena. You should look that up. So when things are not going well and you've tried and you still are not getting to where you are, don't feel too bad. Read that poem.
Excellent. Thank you, Raphael, and thank you to all of our panelists as well for volunteering your time to share your experiences, to talk a little bit more about Intel, and also thank you, Josetta, for sharing the next steps. We will also reiterate those next steps via email. So you can expect, to all of our candidates, you can expect an email from us on the HBCU Connect team to let you know again what those next steps are. We will also share the recording of this event video and a post-event survey so you can give us feedback on how we can continue to improve these virtual events. But again, thank you to all of our panelists, to Intel for supporting this event, for sharing your opportunities, and to our candidates. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate you all coming and showing up and learning more about Intel, because we cannot do these events if you guys do not come to the events, right? So thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to join us and learn more about Intel. And please do make sure to follow up with the opportunities, because like I said, we've had these events in the past and people have gotten hired. So definitely take advantage. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for your time and for attending, and wish you all a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.